feeding frenzy of my starving soul, gnawing voraciously at the bones, the exoskeletal patchwork, protecting my own reflection within the twin sane, engaged in the mirrored act of chewing away at the shell of my attacking self. The paradox, unseen, treacherous, this deceit. To make no choice matter, to have and yet lose yourself. Until finally all reasons why are forgotten. To live through one's own shadow, mute and blinded, is to really see. Eclipse the golden mirror, and the reflection is set free.
What's up, everybody? Thank you very much for watching. It is your pal Drewsif, and I'm going to try and take us through this real fast. So our big rattle here. I just tuned my strings way down. And then for this little ambience bit in the middle, I took the bramp and I reversed it, and then I cut off the very end of the transient so it just kind of goes in and out. So reversed here, and then unreversed, and then I crossfade that into a reversed, and that is the whole thing there. This next part, this same high gain preset, but I just rolled the volume almost all the way down on the guitar. And then we have obviously a nice little rhythm preset here. Which is pretty simple. Oh, excuse my computer having some difficulty there. Nothing really crazy going on here. I got a little compressor going so that it kind of holds the note a little bit better throughout. A little bit of EQ, but not too much. Okay, yeah, both mics there. So I doubled that part with Nameless, just like a random preset that sounded kind of Meshuggah-ish. And that covers that. Now let's jump over to our leads, quote unquote. Pretty much the same thing. Not a whole lot changing in the tone zone. So I'm just doing a little bit of compression, boosting up the gain and pulling the treble back a little bit. As far as the cab, I think, yeah, it's literally the exact same miking as the rhythm preset. And then I'm doing some ridiculous junk here, basically just pulling out a ton of bass and then pushing my mids up a little bit. And that gives you this, and that's all for that. And I'm pretty sure this is actually the exact same patch. This is just the note G. Yep. Cool. Check out our clean guitars rock quick. So the cool thing about Archetype Tim Henson is the clean amp automatically disables the cab, which is what I would do regardless. And you get a really, really, really clean sound, even without blending, but you can also blend in kind of its own DI signal sort of a thing. And normally I would go for more of this kind of sound. But I was trying to emulate the Minds Mirrors, like the original Meshuggah tone, which is a little more MIDI and kind of squawky. Pulling out just a little bit of mid. All right, so that just leaves us with the big shebang. Really, really amazing stuff going on here. And I'll explain why I have 60,000 plugins going on. But the star of the show is this multi-voicer from the Archetype Tim Henson plugin. What it generally does is either it'll take an input and then do its own harmonization, like you can give it a root note and then a mode. Another option is you can hit this little MIDI button right here and actually feed it what notes to tune the input from. So it's like sort of a vocoder, but kind of with its own brain. And really cool here also, this unison knob blends in more instances of your sound, but then detunes it just a little bit, so it's kind of chorusy and like it's really cool. So another thing here is we can detune and delay our voices here. So I've got my voices delayed just a little bit so they don't happen exactly at the same time, and then I'm just very, 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 very slightly detuning. But as you can see, you can pull it and it'll go crazy. And you can pull it and it'll go crazy. So I'm boosting up a little bit of mid and then taking down some high mid, and then I'm boosting up my top frequencies, which I probably didn't have to do, and I'll talk about that later. But now we're on to our post effects, and we've got this really cool delay here with this diffusion mode, which I didn't actually end up using, but I thought it was super cool. So instead of like actually doing like bup delay, it just, I think what it's doing is adding like a ton of delay, and it makes it just sound like this huge expanse.
The feeding frenzy of my starving at the bones.
So very cool. I didn't actually end up using it here though. I just used the modern setting. And then we've got this nice little reverb, which I have set to basically just focus really on the mids, and then not too long of a decay. We feed it a nice clean signal, and it sounds like this.
The feeding frenzy of my starving soul.
goofy as all hell. So what I'm doing right here, some classic vocal processing. So I'm using the 76 to catch the big peaks.
The feeding frenzy of my starving soul, gnawing voraciously at the bones.
And it looks like I actually should have pushed that a little bit harder, but that's how it goes. And then from there, I'm feeding into this LA3A, which is more of the glue kind of a thing.
The feeding frenzy.
So it's catching a good bit.
Gnawing voraciously.
And that's all so that this just goes in and hits it exactly the same, so that it has less thinking to do. And then here, I'm pulling out just a little bit of mid because my voice is very MIDI, and then throwing a little top shelf on. And then that goes into the plugin.
The feeding frenzy of my starving soul.
And you can see
Voraciously at the bones.
all the notes I'm telling it to play there.
Patchwork.
I'm doing a little bit of de-essing.
Feeding frenzy of my starving soul. Gnawing.
So on the Archetype Corey Wong, I am using this to add another very mid-focused, super long reverb, and with like almost no mix in. So it's just kind of filling air.
Gnawing voraciously at the bones.
Coming to the end here, I've got an instance of Reaper's pitch shifting plugin. I'm shifting the whole thing down an octave and then blending back in the dry signal.
The feeding frenzy of my starving soul. Gnawing voraciously at the bones. The exoskeletal patchwork.
So nothing too crazy, just fills it in a little bit more on the low end. From here, I am doing even more de-essing.
Feeding frenzy of my starving soul.
Just because I really didn't like how the S's ended up sounding from that. And then one of my favorites is the side widener right here from JST.
The feeding.
It does some kind of wizardry to make things more stereo, give it more width. Yeah, I sound so professional. All right, so that all put together is our vocal chain. But wait, Drew, what about the other track that you told us you'd get back to? Yes, here we are. Okay, so this is a classic vocoder trick. So I've bussed this track out into another track, pulled out everything but the super high end, so we have unaffected S's and T's and air range. So the difference you get,
The feeding frenzy of my starving soul.
versus
The feeding frenzy of my starving soul.
nothing too crazy, but it is a little something there. And that's it. That is how I mixed this track. Also, I mean, I guess like I have cymbal hits from GGD. Real crazy stuff there. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. If you didn't, sorry about that. Please consider hitting the like button, the subscribe button, the button. Nobody cares. You know what you're doing. Hugs and high fives. Be safe, be good, be well. Goodbye. I'm Drewsif. See ya. Goodbye. That's all.